My dear sons and daughters, today our topic of discussion regarding the paper of literary criticism is how important is criticism, literary criticism, in the proper understanding of all the genres of English literature. Generally, criticism is regarded as a tough subject by majority of the students. As I know many students in my life who tell me that they were not able to understand criticism because it is not full of events like novels, it is not full of events like plays, but it has the ideas, concrete or inconcrete ideas that enable you to develop a proper understanding of poetry and novel, drama, short story, prose, all the genres of English literature. It helps you deep down into poetry and understand the various types of poetry. It also helps you to discover and explore the various types of dramas as well. Since drama has many types, novel has many types, poetry is written in different styles and in different patterns. So without having a complete understanding of the role of criticism, I don't think a student of literature is able to develop the proper understanding for the different genres of literature. I also admit that for general reading public, because literature is read by general reading public as well, whose subject is not literature, who simply read it or watch televised plays for amusement, for enjoyment, because the primary aim and object of literature is to produce amusement for the readers, and the secondary importance of literature is to instruct the readers, to let them know what life is and how life is, right? So to begin with, as I said, as I often use the term literary criticism, people call it, our students call it criticism, and then when they first come across with this term, they perhaps think in the mind of their minds the general meaning of criticism. That criticism, generally, criticism means to find fault with others. For example, if I use a sentence that I criticize your class, this is one thing. I criticize your class, or you criticize me, or somebody criticizes me, or I criticize society, right? And if you say that this essay is the criticism of society, it has some other meanings, that it finds fault with society and it explores the evils found in society. This is one meaning of criticism when we use the word criticism. But when we use the term literary criticism, it is totally a different ball game. It is totally different in its meaning with the term criticism. Literary criticism enables you to interpret and to explain what are the hidden meanings in poetry, in drama, or in novel, to understand the symbolism running through a piece of poetry or novel or drama or in a short story. It helps you to differentiate different branches of arts, right? This is the pure meaning of literary criticism. This is the pure meaning of literary criticism, that it enables you to understand each and every kind of poetry, the difference between, for example, say sonnet and ode, the difference between epic and tragedy, the difference between tragedy and comedy, and so on and so forth. Since poetry is the oldest form, or say the oldest genre in literature, or you may call it poetic drama, because drama in Greek days was written in poetry. So we say that poetry is the oldest form of literature, oldest genre of literature. Since the start, Aristotle wrote a book called Poetics in response to Plato's famous book, The Republic. Had Plato not written Republic, Aristotle perhaps would not have written the Poetics, because in Republic Plato banned poetry, regarding it as false, immoral, mother of all lies, and it wastes time of the students. That is why Aristotle came to help poetry, and he wrote a wonderful defense of poetry, though Plato was the teacher of Aristotle. But with due apology, with due respect, he disagreed with with Plato, and established once and for all that poetry is neither the wastage of time nor immoral. Poetry depicts the society not as it looks, but as it should look. Human beings have changed this society. Human beings have made this society vulgar. Human beings fill this society with cruelty, with oppression, with all these evil things. So Aristotle believed that the poet's mission or the poet's aim is not to depict the society as it looks, but he has to imitate the original idea that exists in the mind of the maker, or that exists in the mind of poetry. That is why poetry is generally idealistic. That's why he believes that poets don't tell lies. Plato says that poets do tell lies because poetry looks different from this real world. It was proven by Aristotle that this real world is not actually a real world. It was a changed world. In reality, the world was not as it looks today. It was quite different. So, criticism started from the defense of poetry during different eras. You will come across Sidney's defense of poesy, an apology for poetry, an apology for poetry, in which you will come across the same thing. Why? Because in his time there was a critic, Stephen Gosson, who also leveled certain allegations on poetry, and Philip Sidney, being a great poet, came to defend it on plausible grounds that poetry is not what he thought. In the process, Aristotle and Philip Sidney and the later critics, they have to explain the term poetry, and they have to dive deep into the various facets and aspects of poetry. Aristotle has to explain the term tragedy and epic. What is the difference between tragedy and epic? You will come across it. You will come across it whether tragedy is superior to epic or epic is superior to tragedy. These are two terms. Aristotle also explains what is tragedy and what is comedy. Aristotle also explains what is plot and what is character. How plot is the soul of tragedy, and what do we actually mean by character. The characters found in poetic drama. So generally we believe that a character is perhaps a dramatic personage, whereas it is not so. Dramatic personage is a personality. His or her character in criticism is a movement from position A to position B. Right? Position A is the exposition of a poetic drama, where the character starts, where the character of a dramatic personage starts. For example, you see Oedipus Rex. Aristotle cites Oedipus Rex as his ideal tragic hero. You see Oedipus Rex in the opening scene. Oedipus Rex is the king and he is the dramatic personage. His character develops with the passage of time, and towards the end you are properly introduced, or you properly understand what type of a man Oedipus is. Maybe your first encounter with Oedipus makes you realize that he is haughty, He is proud as a king. He is angry as a king. It may. But with the passage of time, as his character develops, you will come across many things, and towards the end, your opinion is totally changed. Now you understand the difference between a dramatic personage and his or her character. Darcy appears a haughty character to Elizabeth in the opening chapters, but his character, as it develops with the passage of time through different events, he is something else. And Elizabeth herself regards Darcy as something quite different from what she regards him in the opening chapter. She has to rethink and revisit her previous opinion. So this is what we call the development of character. Through criticism, you learn the difference, as I said, between various types of poetry and various types of novels, and the difference between plot and story. Story is just a flow of events, but if you arrange those events in a logical sequence, means event number 1 should be followed by event number 2, and event number 2 should be followed by event number 3. As Aristotle says, the beginning and the middle and the end. So many events make the beginning, or 2-3 events make the beginning, and then so many events make the middle of the plot, and so many events or 2-3 events make the ending of the plot, right? So the beginning should start the play, or even you may call it a novel, and leads the readers as well as the events to the middle. The middle should be the result of the beginning. It should be the logical result of the beginning. Now you are in 6th semester. This being in 6th semester is the result of your admission in 1st semester. You are perhaps in the beginning of your, in the middle of your degree, and the students who took admission in 1st semester, they are in the beginning of their plot, the plot of doing BS, right? Middle should be the result of the beginning, and the end should be the result of both the beginning and the middle. And if or if you rephrase it, the end should be the result of the middle, and there should be nothing after the ending, and there should be nothing before the beginning. This is what we call plot. But if you compare it with story, story is just a jumble of events in which the events may not be given a proper or logical arrangement. Now, these are not the only books of criticism that you have in your course. You have in your course perhaps the poetics, or say the defense of apology for poetry, or you may have a preface to lyrical ballads, or you may have the book of Coleridge, Biographia Literaria, right? or you may have Matthew Arnold, or writers like these, Tradition and Individual Talent, T.S. Eliot, The Critic, his essays. There are certain other books I want to refer to you which enable you to understand the characters. For example, I remember a book called The Aspects of Novel, written by Ian Foster. This particular book covers only novels. That book is worth reading, in which he introduced the two terms, the round character and the flat characters, which perhaps we know who is a round character and who is a flat character. So in life, as I keep saying, that literature represents human life as realistically as possible in drama or in novel or in short story or in other branches of literature. So in life, you come across many characters who are flat and who are round. So you will have to develop a sense how you judge a round character, how you judge a flat character in your life. As I keep saying, as a joke with my students, that I have seen many Mrs. Bennets living in my locality here in Miawali. They are living. There are many Wickhams living here in Miawali. I have come across them because I can recognize that they belong to the Bath area, as Jane Austen writes Bath novels. They belong to the mid of England. But there being typical characters, there being humanized characters, such type of people or such type of characters do live here in our neighborhood, and we come across people like them. This is the universality of literature, and you come to know all these things through criticism and through the critical ability. When you read criticism or some critics that are included in your course, with the passage of time we will be discussing them, you will develop a critical sense of your own in your own mind, and you even start differentiating between two real brothers, because these two real brothers are quite different from each other in their temperament, in their behavior, in their attitude towards different things, in their idiosyncrasies. They are different. Their biochemistry is different from each other. Their habits are different from each other. So we all are characters. We all are living characters, as Shakespeare says that this world is a drama and we are all human. This world is a stage and we are all human beings. So we have to understand the people living in society. This is the main object of literature. The first is that it amuses us, and the other, that we understand human beings like ourselves living in society. And man is different from another man. Human beings are not alike, right? So the development of the critical ability by reading those critics, you understand poetry, you understand the difference between dithyrambic poetry and iambic poetry, you understand difference between a ballad and a sonnet, or say an ode or a sonnet. You understand that which are the types of lyrical poetry. You understand what are the ingredients of, say, panegyric, right? So different things can be learned properly through criticism and it enables you to understand each and every aspect of novel, drama, and poetry. So I think today is Friday, so I keep it short and I take leave of you. Inshallah, we'll be discussing criticism in the upcoming days. Thank you very much.